Hi, today we're going over section 4.5, which is equivalent forms of the equation of a quadratic function. So as we've previously gone over, the general form of a quadratic is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, where standard or vertex form is y equals ax minus p squared plus q. And today we'll be looking at changing from the general form to standard form, and we'll actually be using a process that we went over in an earlier chapter. So in order to know what to start with our table values, we usually want to change from general form to standard form. That will tell us where our vertex is, and we can do it by completing the square. So for example, change to vertex form y equals x squared plus 10x plus 18. Now, if we don't have a value in front of our x squared term, we can start by rewriting our equation with the blanks. So you've got y equals x squared plus 10x plus a blank plus 18 minus a blank. Now, in those blanks is going to go our b value divided by 2 and squared. So in this case, our b value is 10. So we have 10 divided by 2 squared, so that'd be 5 squared, which is 25. Now, in doing this, let's create a perfect square trinomial for the first 3 terms that we can then factor. So our perfect square trinomial becomes x plus 5 squared. We'll then combine the terms out here. So 18 minus 25 gives us -7. So we now have this in vertex form. So we can see our vertex of this is at -5, -7. When our a does not equal 1, we need to factor that value out first. So change to vertex form, and we've got 2x squared plus 4x minus 1. So our first step will be to factor the 2 out because it's in front of our x squared. I'll also write it out with the blanks in the same step. So 4x divided by 2 would be plus 2x. We then have a blank. -1 divided by 2 would be -1/2. And then we have minus a blank. In that blank is going to go our b divided by 2 and squared. Now our b value is from our version where we factored out our a value. So we'd have a 2 over 2 squared, so that's just going to be 1. Our first 3 terms form our perfect square trinomial. So we'll factor it, so that becomes x plus 1 squared. And then -1/2 minus 1 is -3 over 2. Our next step is to multiply the 2 into here as well as to here. So with the first one, the 2 just moves immediately in front of our x plus 1 squared. And then 2 times -3 over 2 would be -3. So this one we can see our vertex would be at -1, -3. Okay, so we have another one, change to vertex form. We have 3x squared minus 12x plus 4. So we will start out by factoring out a 3. So we have 3 times x squared minus 4x plus a blank plus 4 over 3 minus a blank. And then we'll do our b over 2 squared. So our b value in this case is -4. So -4 divided by 2 squared gives us -2 squared, which is 4. So we have plus 4 and minus 4. Our first 3 terms are a perfect square trinomial, which we'll factor. So that becomes x minus 2 squared. And then 4 over 3 minus 4 becomes -8 over 3. we'll multiply the 3 in, and we get y is equal to 3 times x minus 2 squared minus 8. So our vertex would be at 2 comma negative 8. Okay, one last example. Change to vertex form and we have y is equal to negative 2x squared plus 5x minus 1. So we'll factor out the negative 2. We have negative 2 times x squared. We can't divide 5 without getting a decimal, so we'll leave it as a fraction. So we'd have minus 5 over 2 x plus a blank plus 1/2 minus a blank. And then do our b over 2 squared. So b in this case is 5 over 2, negative 5 over 2. That's being divided by 2 and squared. So that would be negative 5 over 4 squared. So that's 25 over 16. So we have plus 25 over 16 and minus 25 over 16. Now let's create our perfect square trinomial, which will factor. So we've got negative 2 times x minus 5 over 4 squared. And then we'll combine 1/2 and negative 25 over 16. So that gives us negative 17 over 16. Our next step is multiply the negative 2 in. So that gives us y is equal to negative 2 times x minus 5 over 4 squared plus 17 over 8. So our vertex would be at 5 over 4, comma 17 over 8. Okay, so practice on this stuff starts on page 315.